Jeez, that's some big ass hail. Jeez.
It was supposed to be a peaceful Saturday evening in South Texas, the kind of night made for backyard barbecues, high school football, and porch lights glowing in the warm Gulf air. The temperature sat in the upper 70s, the humidity thick, and the sunset brushed the horizon with soft shades of orange and gold. Everything felt calm, familiar, safe. Then suddenly the wind shifted. The still air turned cool and uneasy. Flags started snapping, dogs barked into the distance, and a low rumble rolled in from the Gulf. Lightning flashed sideways across the sky, a jagged streak slicing through towering clouds that climbed higher and higher by the second. The sunset's glow faded into gray, then to a strange, greenish hue that every Texan knows too well. Something bad was coming. First, it sounded like rain, a soft patter on rooftops, a gentle ping against metal gutters. But the sound grew louder, sharper, until it became a deafening roar. Hail. Tiny pellets at first, then golf ball-sized chunks of ice slamming down at nearly 80 miles an hour. Roofs cracked, windows shattered. Cars were beaten like drums under the relentless barrage. The streets echoed with the metallic roar of ice colliding with everything in sight. Streetlights flickered. Sirens began to wail. The storm had arrived, fast, brutal, and merciless. From Corpus Christi to Portland, Taft, and Gregory, entire neighborhoods vanished under a storm of white fury. A warm, humid evening had transformed into a frozen nightmare, a scene more fitting for the Arctic than the Texas coast. And when the storm finally passed, the morning light revealed a landscape buried in ice and shattered glass. As Texans stepped outside, one haunting question hung in the air. How does a place built for sunshine wake up looking like the Arctic? The warning signs were subtle, easy to overlook. By late afternoon, meteorologists at the National Weather Service in Corpus Christi started noticing strange patterns on their radar screens. Tiny rotations began to appear just offshore, those flashing streaks of red and purple that only mean one thing. A supercell was forming over the Gulf of Mexico. Warm, moisture-heavy air from the coast was clashing head-on with a surge of cold, dry air drifting down from the Central Plains. That collision, a brutal battle between heat and chill, was about to set off one of the most violent hailstorms Texas had ever seen. As the evening settled in, the sky began to twist and churn. Lightning streaked sideways across the clouds like fiery veins, while thunder rolled so deeply it shook windows miles away. The temperature dropped nearly 15 degrees in just 20 minutes. The air turned dense, sharp, and electric. Locals who stepped outside said the silence felt wrong, too still, too heavy. One man later described it as the calm before the impact. And then, without warning, it began. The storm hit like a freight train. The first gust slammed into the coast at more than 70 miles an hour, tearing through palm trees and bending them almost flat against the ground. Rain turned to ice in just seconds. Before anyone could react, rooftops in Portland and Taft began to echo with the sound of massive hailstones, some nearly 3 inches wide, smashing down at almost 100 miles per hour. The noise was unreal, a constant metallic roar so loud it drowned out even the thunder. Within minutes, cars were crushed, skylights shattered, and windows exploded under the relentless storm. Streetlights blinked out, power lines snapped in the wind, and terrified residents ran for shelter, hiding in closets, bathrooms, and hallways, covering their heads as the chaos unfolded outside. What had started as a normal coastal thunderstorm quickly morphed into something else entirely, a full-blown supercell. Fueled by the Gulf's warm air and clashing with a violent cold front, the storm turned the Texas sky into a weapon. The first place to face the storm's full power was Portland, a small, peaceful town just north of Corpus Christi. Around 8:15 p.m., radar images spiked. What locals thought was just another thunderstorm suddenly turned into a scene straight out of a disaster movie. Rain hardened into ice in an instant. Hailstones the size of baseballs tore through the air at over 90 miles per hour, smashing everything in sight. Parking lots outside Walmart and H-E-B looked like war zones, glass everywhere, car roofs dented, and alarms blaring. Drivers sprinted for safety as their windshields exploded around them. By the time the storm moved on, hundreds of vehicles were destroyed, buried beneath a thick layer of icy white wreckage. It didn't look like Texas anymore. It looked like the Arctic, except this wasn't snow. It was devastation. When nature turns fierce, even the strongest steel bends. And for a few terrifying minutes that night, the sky itself declared war on Texas. Just a few miles to the north, the town of Taft took a direct hit from the heart of the supercell. The sound was overwhelming, a constant, metallic roar echoing through the streets like a freight train that wouldn't stop. Roofs were peeled away, siding ripped off walls, and power poles snapped like toothpicks. Palm trees bent nearly to the ground under winds topping 70 miles per hour, while flashes of blue and green from blown transformers lit up the stormy sky. Inside their homes, families gathered in closets and hallways, whispering prayers as the sounds of shattering glass and flying debris filled the air. In that terrifying moment, there was nothing left to do but hold on and hope the walls would stand. By 9 that night, both towns were swallowed by darkness. Power was gone across the entire coastal bend. Roads were blocked, rescue crews trapped by flooding, fallen trees, and mountains of hail. When the thunder finally faded east toward the Gulf, what came next was an eerie stillness, the kind of silence that only follows chaos. The only sounds were distant car alarms and the slow drip of water through shattered ceilings. That night, Portland and Taft weren't just names on a weather map, they were ground zero for one of the most violent hailstorms in modern Texas history. By sunrise, the storm had moved inland, but its destruction stretched for miles. From Gregory to Kingsville, South Texas looked like a frozen wasteland. Driveways, lawns, and highways were blanketed in hail so thick it looked as if a blizzard had swept through the desert. The morning air was filled with the crunch of ice beneath boots and the low hum of generators struggling to bring power back. Across rural counties, acres of cotton and cornfields were left shredded, entire harvests wiped out in under an hour. Farmers stood in stunned silence, staring at twisted irrigation pipes, collapsed barns, and tractors half buried under frozen debris. Steel roofs were dented beyond repair, like someone had taken a giant hammer to them. What was once the heartbeat of South Texas now looked like a scene from another world, one carved by ice, wind, and the unstoppable force of nature. A thick blanket of hail, almost 3 inches deep, covered the backroads of South Texas. Rescue trucks couldn't get through. Power crews were stranded. Transformers were still crackling and smoking from the chaos the night before, and the power lines hung low, coated in glittering icicles under the morning sun. At first glance, it looked like a winter postcard from Colorado, but this wasn't snow. This was devastation. The air was heavy with the scent of wet soil, broken wood, and gasoline leaking from damaged fuel tanks. Inside shattered homes, people sifted through what was left: broken glass, soaked insulation, and fragments of their lives. Some couldn't even open their doors because the hail had frozen them shut. Others woke up to find piles of ice inside their living rooms, blown in through shattered windows. By mid-morning, insurance lines were jammed with desperate voices repeating the same words. "My roof's gone. My car's destroyed. There's water pouring through my ceiling." For a state known for sunshine and heat, the sight was almost surreal. Texas looked frozen solid. And as the hail slowly melted away, one feeling lingered: disbelief. Because deep down, everyone knew this wasn't just another storm. It was a warning. The weather in Texas had changed. As cleanup began, meteorologists rushed to figure out what caused such a violent storm to strike so suddenly and so late in the season. Their findings stunned even the experts. This wasn't just a thunderstorm. It was a supercell, one of nature's most powerful weather systems. Everything that night had lined up perfectly for disaster. Warm, humid air from the Gulf pushed north, colliding with a wave of cold, dry air sliding down from the Great Plains. When those two forces met, they sparked a massive updraft, a spiraling tower of air that climbed over 45,000 feet into the atmosphere. Inside that storm, temperatures plunged below freezing, and what formed there wasn't just ice. It was a sign that something much bigger is changing in our skies. Raindrops were caught in powerful 100-mile-per-hour updrafts, thrown high into the sky again and again, each time freezing into ice before falling back down. Every cycle added a new layer of ice until the hailstones became massive, solid, and dangerously heavy. When gravity finally took over, they crashed down the size of baseballs, hard, fast, and destructive. Radar scans later showed multiple hail cores inside the storm, dense clusters of ice swirling like angry planets. The data confirmed what meteorologists already suspected. This was no ordinary storm. It was a monster. According to the National Weather Service, the Gulf of Mexico's surface temperature that week was about 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than normal. That extra warmth acted like rocket fuel, feeding the supercell and turning it into a massive, organized, and devastating force as it swept inland. Experts warn that storms like this are no longer rare. Warmer oceans, changing jet streams, and humid air are creating the perfect setup for more frequent and more intense supercells. Texas, once bracing for spring tornadoes, is now facing November hailstorms with the power of midsummer tempests. The storm that tore through Portland and Taft wasn't just a freak event. It was a warning, a glimpse of the new reality shaped by a changing climate. When the storm finally drifted away and the thunder rolled off into the Gulf, Texas was left in a haunting stillness. The kind of silence that feels almost sacred after chaos. As the sun rose, its first light uncovered the full extent of the destruction. Towns like Portland, Taft, and Gregory looked more like battlefields than neighborhoods. Cars sat with shattered windshields, rooftops were torn apart, and yards were buried beneath layers of white hail. Power lines drooped low, and every street sparkled with bits of ice catching the morning light. For a while, it didn't even look like Texas. It looked like a world frozen in disbelief. But then, life began to stir again. Neighbors stepped outside, staring in shock, and then, without a second thought, they got to work. People grabbed chainsaws to clear fallen trees. Families shoveled driveways together. Churches opened their doors, offering warmth, hot meals, and a place to rest for those left in the dark. In the midst of destruction, Texas showed its strength, not through walls or wires, but through people helping people. When the skies over Texas turned dark that November evening, no one could have imagined what was coming next. As the hail began to fall, volunteer firefighters went door to door, checking on the elderly, delivering generators, and making sure no one was left behind. Even in the middle of chaos, that trademark Texas toughness, built on grit, faith, and community, refused to break. By the next afternoon, the roads were alive with power crews, roofers, and insurance agents. Damage estimates shot into the tens of millions. And yet, there was a sense of relief because somehow no lives were lost. Considering how violent that storm was, that alone felt like a miracle. Many had lost nearly everything. Cars crushed, roofs ripped apart, but not their spirit. In Taft, a woman stood beside what used to be her pickup truck, still shaking, but thankful to be alive. Her words echoed what so many Texans felt. We might get knocked down, but we don't stay down. That's Texas. A place that nature can batter, but never break. A place that rebuilds, not because it's easy, but because giving up simply isn't who they are. That night, Texas froze. But by morning, it was thawed again, warmed by the courage and resilience of its people. The Texas hailstorm of November 1st, 2025, will be remembered as one of the most powerful in recent history, not just for the damage it caused, but for the message it sent. In a state known for heat, drought, and endless sunshine, the sky unleashed millions of icy bullets, turning the Gulf Coast white. Within an hour, cars were wrecked, homes were battered, and fields were shredded. When the clouds finally cleared, what remained wasn't just destruction, it was a warning. Nature doesn't whisper anymore, it roars. It reminds us that the line between normal and disaster is fading. Warmer oceans, shifting jet streams, unpredictable seasons, they're changing the rules faster than we can keep up. But through it all, one truth still stands. Texas may bend, but it will never break. Because its greatest strength has never been its land, it's always been its people. Texans rebuilt. They came together, helping neighbors fix roofs, clear streets, and find hope buried beneath the ice. That same strength, that same unshakable spirit, is what will define us as the storms ahead grow even stronger. But there's a question we can't keep avoiding. How many more warnings do we need before we finally listen? How many once-in-a-century storms have to hit before we accept that something deeper is changing? If this story touched you, hit the like button. It helps us share real stories about nature's power and human resilience. Share this video to spread awareness of how fast our weather and our world are changing. And don't forget to subscribe for more true stories of storms, science, and survival across America. Now, we want to hear from you. Do you think these storms are just part of nature's cycle? Or are they proof that our planet is changing faster than we can handle? Are we truly ready for the next one, or still hoping it won't find us? because every storm carries a message. The real question is, are we listening?